Nightreign is an experience completely unfamiliar to us fans of the Soulsborne Elden Ring franchise. It's a co-op first roguelike hybrid mixed with battle royale elements but set in the Elden Ring universe. It is quite a bit different to the usual single-player oriented ARPG the franchise is known for. The core mechanics of the game honestly didn't make a whole lot of sense to me when they were advertising it. It still doesn't even really sound all that appealing when you break it down, but let me assure you, the game is actually really fun. Everything from its fast-paced combat to the way they overhauled most of the mechanics to the familiar and new bosses we see, Nightreign is an experience that I believe is worth picking up if you're a fan of the Soulsborne series. The combat feels somewhat akin to Elden Ring's, but the pacing does feel different, similar to Sekiro's, providing a healthy learning curve for all players, experienced and new. It poses a unique challenge that is even more fun to tackle with friends. So with that, if you like the video, please feel free to drop a like to help with the algorithm, subscribe to stick around for future Soulsborne content, and let's take a look at what Nightreign really is. As I explained previously, Nightreign is a unique experience set within the Elden Ring universe, bringing both old and new faces to the table. You, along with two other heroes, are dropped into procedurally generated worlds of the lands between, fighting through enemies and bosses alike. This land is set in a place called Limveld, a land we have not heard of before. There's an ever-shrinking circle that forces players into a designated area similar to Fortnite's Storm Zone. Once you reach the intended target, the Golden Tree, some enemies and a large boss will spawn. If you fail or die, you'll be sent back to the Round Table Hold and have to start a brand new journey. However, if you succeed, you'll move on to Day 2 and repeat a similar cycle. Survive Day 2, and you'll face off against one of the Night Lords. There are currently 8 Night Lords in the game, each of them incredibly strong with unique mechanics and gimmicks. Essentially, a Night Lord is a final boss at the end of the 3-day run. In the interest of avoiding spoilers since the game is still fairly new, we will focus only on the first available one, Gladius, Beast of the Night. Gladius is a 3-headed dog, or more accurately, 3 dogs fused into a single body. He wields a large sword chained to him, which he can swing in wide arcs if you're not up close. He also has the ability to split into 3 separate wolves, one of which wields the chained sword, while the other 2 rely on claw or bite attacks. If that already sounds like enough offense for one boss, he also breathes fire and generates fire blasts. This puppy does not mess around. On one of my first runs, our squad managed to get him down to about half health before he wiped us. Even though we were appropriately leveled, some of his fire attacks could still one-shot us, so we really tried to lock in, but it did not go too well. The Night Lord concept overall, though, fits this game perfectly, and the build-up toward the final Day 3 fight makes it all feel worth it. These Night Lord bosses are no pushovers, though. They do offer a real challenge. But who are you to be worthy of fighting a Night Lord? You are given a choice between 8 preset classes known as the Nightfarers. The options include the Wielder, Guardian, Iron Eye, Duchess, Raider, Revenant, Recluse, and Executor. Each Nightfarer has predetermined stats, so you can pick the one that fits your playstyle best. My current favorites include Guardian, who's a tanky character with medium damage, and Raider, a bingo bongo strength build that uses heavy weapons. FromSoft has even figured out finally how to make an archery build that actually is viable in a Soulsborne game with Iron Eye, so somebody praise the sun for that. Character customization is limited to cosmetic outfits you can buy with in-game currency, which simplifies the gameplay loop and also helps streamline the combat a bit. The combat in Nightreign is probably the element that feels most familiar to Elden Ring. You've got a wide variety of weapons pulled in from Elden Ring, but they now have randomized weapon skills and passive effects. You can carry up to 6 weapons at a time, and you're encouraged to use all of your slots since passive effects apply even when the weapon isn't equipped. The old leveling system from past games is gone, replaced by a rarity system similar to most battle royales. The old weapon leveling system from past games is also gone. It's replaced by a rarity system similar to most battle royales. You've got your common grays, uncommon blues, rare purples, and legendary golds. Very Fortnite, very Fort nice, FromSoft. You can find or buy smithing stones in your world and use them at anvils to upgrade your gear to the next tier, but honestly, I've found that just finding higher tier weapons tends to be more effective in my runs. Graces, healing, and character leveling have all been reworked too. Graces are scattered across the world and clearly marked on your map. To activate them, all you have to do is just run up to them, unlike in Elden Ring where you actually have to physically touch them. These graces now only serve to level you up though. You can't assign your stats manually like in previous titles. Instead, you have an automatic stat increase based on how many times you level up. This speeds up the leveling process quite a bit, so you don't have to spend 12 business days debating whether to level strength, or to level more strength. If you can't tell, I am a strength main, and I will do it until the day I die, so leave me alone. For healing, you still have your trusty flask of Crimson Tears. However, you start with 3 flasks, and to add more charges onto that, you have to find altars hidden across in Churches of America. There are usually a few of these scattered across the world each day, and once you interact with the altar, you'll be granted an additional flask charge. Also, to refill your flasks, all you have to do is walk up to a grace. You don't need to interact with it like previously mentioned. The last new mechanic that I've noticed so far is something called relics. You are awarded randomized relics after attempting or completing a run in Limveld, and you can also use in-game currency to purchase randomized relics. There are 4 color options for relics: red, green, blue, and yellow. Each Nightfarer has colored slots to utilize these relics. For example, my main boy Guardian has 1 red and 2 yellow slots. Guardian cannot utilize any green or blue relics. These relics grant passive effects that range from being straight trash to greatly improving your chances on the run, so they are super useful to have equipped. Obviously, the first thing I'm going to highlight about the game is how much fun there is to be had. They clearly curated an experience that's meant to be enjoyable, whether playing with friends or with randoms, and it does really excel in that. It doesn't have the over-the-top lore that all the previous entries had, but it's still an incredible experience. I love that for the first time, they've designed a game where co-op is the main focus. All previous entries were primarily single-player experiences with the option to summon others to help you clear an area or beat a boss, but I don't believe any of the previous Soulsborne games were actually designed with co-op in mind. Nightreign, on the other hand, thrives on its co-op gameplay, and it's obvious that the entire experience is built around it. One of my biggest struggles in the game so far has been trying to handle bosses on my own when I get separated from the rest of the squad. Every single time I've tried this, it's ended up with me getting my ass kicked, and so I've learned to stay close to the homies. The second aspect of Nightreign that I really love is its unique take on familiar mechanics, concepts, enemies, and bosses. Even though Nightreign is set in the Elden Ring universe, it pulls in enemies and bosses from Dark Souls 1, 2, and 3. Some of the standout ones include the Centipede Demon, Gaping Dragon, Smelter Demon, Duke's Deer Freya, Dancer of the Boreal Valley, and Nameless King. It's awesome that they decided to bring in fan favorites from previous titles instead of using only Elden Ring bosses. If they had used Elden Ring bosses only, the game probably would have felt more like a weird side mode spin-off of Elden Ring, so I'm really glad that they didn't. Plus, they didn't just reuse the same mechanics from Elden Ring, they completely reworked and revamped them to fit this style of game. For example, being able to level up each individual stat works perfectly in Elden Ring, but it really wouldn't make a whole lot of sense in the fast-paced environment of Nightreign. The third and final aspect of the game that I love so far is how they've reworked familiar areas to feel fresh and new. The most prominent example I have of this is the Round Table Hold, which serves as the main hub of the game in Nightreign as well as in Elden Ring. Here you'll find everything you need: safety, sparring opportunities, places to buy and equip relics, and more. You can test out the abilities and builds of each Nightfarer in the sparring grounds before jumping into a full game blind. In Elden Ring though, the Round Table Hold is entirely indoors, and you can't see what's beyond it, but Nightreign takes place in an alternate universe where the outside areas are accessible. I know that's a super small detail, but to me it's cool, so you get to hear me ramble about it. The biggest flaw with Nightreign so far is the lack of co-op quality of life features in a game that so heavily emphasizes co-op gameplay. There's no in-game voice chat, so public matchmaking can be extremely difficult. Actually, scratch that, damn near impossible to properly communicate. Really, the only forms of communication are pinging or using gestures. I get that no previous Soulsborne game has had any sort of in-game voice chat, but those games were never designed to be co-op first experiences. This one is. On top of that, there's no crossplay. Personally, I haven't really run into any issues with this since my friends are on PC, but I know that for console players or people with friends with consoles, it's super limiting. I mean, come on, it's 2025. How are games that are this co-op focused still launching without the ability to crossplay out the gate? Another part of the game that I'm not the biggest fan of is the requirement for 3 players. Sure, you can try the experience solo or just with one other teammate, but there's no difficulty scaling to adjust for that. The game is balanced assuming bosses are going to be taking 3 times damage from 3 players, but if you're only doing 2 times damage, you're already at a pretty significant disadvantage. It's not the biggest issue in the world, but it can be annoying having to bring in a random third if you're like me and you only have one friend, who also happens to be your only brother. Speaking of public matchmaking, you're really subject to the luck of the draw. As with any game that has public matchmaking, you're either getting matched with absolute gods or the most dense-headed troglodyte imaginable. It can make for some funny moments, absolutely, but it can also be seriously frustrating when you're down and watching your teammate pick up loot 3 miles away from you. I really enjoy Nightreign. I find it to be an incredibly fun experience with a unique take on the franchise. Coming into the game knowing it wasn't going to be your classic Souls-style game really did set me up for success though in enjoying it. I feel like if I had gone into it expecting Elden Ring 2, I probably would have been super disappointed, but with the game we actually got, I'm having a ton of fun playing it. I'm confident that the future of Nightreign holds a lot of potential as well to expand on the already amazing foundation they've built. I'm not sure whether this is going to be a live service game with ongoing updates and content drops over the next few months, or if they'll choose to keep it more contained, but either way, I would love to see more Nightfarers, bosses, and Nightlords added. There are 8 Nightlords available at launch, so there is a solid chunk of content right out of the gate, but I'm really curious to see how they continue to innovate and build upon what's already there. Lastly, I'm hoping that they add more enemies and bosses from Dark Souls 1, 2, and 3. As someone who loves all things nostalgia, it would be really cool to have more throwback fights scattered across Limbo. Although, I am super happy with the game's current state at launch, as you can tell. I would love to know your thoughts on Nightreign, the state of launch. If you're loving the game, if you're liking it, if you're disliking it, please let me know down in the comments. If you liked the video, please feel free to drop a like, subscribe for future Nightreign content, and I will catch you in the next one. Peace!